Unbreakable is a 2000 dramatic fantasy film by M. Night Shyamalan. While it deals with the subject of superheroes, it is not a superhero movie in the traditional sense. Superhero films take place in the world of comic books, where these heroes exist. Unbreakable takes place in a world that mirrors our own, where comic books exist and superheroes do not. It's a subtle and important difference and allows Unbreakable to work on a more soulful thematic level than the typical superhero film, digging into matters of personal identity and empowerment in a very modest and low-key way, rather than a predictable rehashing of the battle between good versus evil done with stylized violence and visual effects. David Dunn is facing a midlife crisis. He's in the midst of an awkward separation from his wife Audrey while still staying at their Philadelphia home with her and his son Joseph, and he's not having luck finding a new job in New York, where he plans to move. After a freak railway disaster that he miraculously survives, he comes into contact with Elijah Price, a wealthy disabled comic book collector who believes David may be an actual superhero. Unbreakable is about belief in oneself and the search for our calling in life. This idea permeates the film, and the core character crisis David is facing comes into particular focus during a date night he and his wife go on in an attempt at reconciling. When Audrey asks him when did he first realize things might not work out between them, he replies, "I had a nightmare and I didn't wake you so you could tell me it was okay." While seemingly trivial, this response speaks to a plain truth to why people break up. While bad behavior and acting out inevitably happen when couples fall apart, the real trigger is most often tied to a loss of one's self-esteem. One partner loses faith in themselves, and this corrosion of self spreads to the other, and to the rest of the family. The film makes the specific character focus of David Dunn his relationship to his wife and son, and Elijah Price's relationship to his mother for this reason. The film is saying that it's the health of our interpersonal and family relationships that define and empower us as individuals, and that the give and take in believing in one another is both a powerful force, but also a delicate balance that can be undone by unchecked self-doubt. The most painful expression of this idea is shown in David's relationship with his son Joseph, who desperately wants to believe David is what Elijah claims he is. Even more so than jaded adults, it's children who have a primal need to believe in their parents and need their parents to believe in them. The importance of the childlike point of view is established early in the film. In the opening scene where David unsuccessfully hits on a married woman on the train, it becomes clear the POV is that of the little girl in the seat in front of him, who seems disappointed with his behavior. When we first see the girl, she's upside down. Joseph is also inverted when we first see him watching television, and when the young Elijah picks up the comic in the park, the camera rotates, seemingly fighting to keep the cover image upside down. These are all visual cues that for the characters of David, Elijah, and Joseph, the world is upside down, things are not right, and their self-esteem hangs in the balance. In contrast to the concepts of self-worth is the idea that we all have a blind spot when it comes to knowing who we are and what we should do with our lives. A blind spot often reinforced by those who love us and more than anything want to protect us, like David's wife Audrey and Elijah's mother. The film highlights that the level of denial connected to this blind spot can be very powerful. David Dunn hasn't just spent years working as a security guard without questioning his life choices. He's never questioned his own physical durability, or why an instance of getting water in his lungs as a child nearly killed him. More significantly, he's spent his whole life suppressing his own awareness that he has a sixth sense that allows him to see the recent memories of dark things that people have done. Interestingly, to establish the parameter of this power, there is this scene where director Shyamalan in a cameo is shaken down by David because he's seen a vision of him picking up a drug drop in a nearby bathroom. His search reveals no package of drugs, and we wonder if David's vision is faulty, but looking more closely, we realize Shyamalan's character is wearing a different jacket in the vision, and when we compare this vision to the ones David experiences later in the film, it becomes clear what he is experiencing are not premonitions, but that person's recent memories of the past, in Shyamalan's case, from some previous day. David has lived his life actively denying these things he can't accept about himself. It's the detached observer, Elijah, who gives David insight into not only who he is, but what his specific strengths and weaknesses are. When David fully accepts what he is and opens up to his psychic gift, he uses it to track a psychotic home invader and rapist back to the scene of his latest crime, still in progress. It's no mistake this is where David faces his moment of truth. Having carefully built up this idea of self-esteem and empowerment growing out of our family relationships, it makes narrative sense that the villain he fights and kills is in the act of destroying a family, having murdered the father and raped the mother to death. The willful desecration of the family unit is a primary kind of evil, and the depraved criminal here is tragically not something from the pages of a comic book, but a type of person that's all too real in the world we live in. When David defeats him, he's come full circle. His belief in himself is restored, and his family can now heal. He carries Audrey to his bed and admits he had a nightmare to her, allowing himself to be vulnerable with her, perhaps for the first time. And over breakfast, he looks upon Joseph, who never doubted him, with awe and love. As for Elijah, he represents a more dangerous and less obvious kind of evil than the home invader, in that his character, like David's, has been living with the same blind spot, committing acts of terrorism to advance what he sees as a potential good, yet blind to the obvious inhumanity of his own actions. The theme of knowing oneself now takes an ironic turn, as the reveal of Elijah as a villain is a triumphant moment for his character. Having helped David clear away his blind spot, David now does the same for him, revealing who Elijah really is. This causes Elijah to weep with joy, even though he knows he's about to be arrested for his crimes, signifying that the pain of learning who we really are is worth it, regardless of what we find out, or the cost. Unbreakable is a superhero film that's really not about superheroes at all, but about facing ourselves truthfully and finding liberation in self-knowledge. And it could be that the title itself does not actually refer to David's indestructibility, but rather the unbreakable power of having faith in ourselves and our loved ones, and belief in the sustaining and reciprocal symmetry of love. Thanks for watching The Divergent View. This is Random Rob. I'll see you next time.